Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Progressively Yours Health and Wellness Podcast. I'm Dr. Imani Ma'at.
I'm J. Bernard Kine Sr.
And the two of us are Sankofa Institute for Wellness. And we bring you programs of primarily about people and organizations that are promoting health and wellness, and also people who are stepping into their power. The name of my last blog talk show. And tonight, we will not disappoint. We have someone who is wonderful to share with our listening and viewing audience. So please stay tuned and call your friends. If you know anyone who is in the role of a caregiver for their elderly parents or a family member, it may be other people in the family as well that they're in the position of serving as caregivers. So if you have any friends like that, you definitely want to get them on this show this evening. This is going to be wonderful. But before we get to that, we always start with a moment of spiritual decompression. That's what I prefer to call it. Bernard, if you want to lead us.
Yes, thank you, Imani. I'd like to invite our guests to join in just a moment of spiritual meditation. I ask that if you wish to participate, that you begin by, if you're sitting, find a comfortable position. I invite you to close your eyes as I'm going to ring the tingshaws and then share a reading from the Living Wisdom of the Tao. As we welcome the spirit of the ancestors, these words, verse 2, when my work is done, it is forgotten. That is why it lasts forever. Under heaven, all can see beauty as beauty, only because there is ugliness. All can know good as good, only because there is evil. Being and non-being produce each other. The difficult is born in the easy. Long is defined by short, the high by the low. Before and after go along with each other. So the sage lives openly with apparent duality and paradoxical unity. The sage can't act without effort and teach without words. Nurturing things without possessing them. He works, but not for rewards. He competes, but not for results. When the work is done, it is forgotten. That is why it lasts forever. Ashe.
Ashe.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Imani.
Thank you, Bernard.
You're
I
welcome.
like that. When the work is done, it is forgotten, and that is why it lasts forever. And I just wanted to, I picked something that I actually have on my bathroom wall. Every now and then I put sayings up that resonate with me. And this is something that resonated with me. And it's also relevant to the piece that Bernard just read from Dr. Wayne Dyer, the late and great Dr. Wayne Dyer, from Living the Wisdom of the Tao. It's very consistent with that. And it's consistent also with our guest presenter this evening and the book that she's going to talk about concerning caregivers. And this saying is, think of every single thing that you have to do to get through a day as things you get to do before your turn is over. Everything is a gift. And this is This is a person I follow or sends me emails all the time, and he writes under the tag the universe. So it's like the universe speaking to you. Let me read it one more time. Think of every single thing that you have to do to get through a day as things that you get to do before your turn is over. Yeah, just think about those words. I think it's so beautiful. Everything is a gift. And with that, we're going to move forward. And I am so excited about introducing our listening and watching audience to Miss Linda Williams. Linda was introduced to me by another dear friend some years ago, probably about 8 years ago. Time goes so fast. And when I was putting together staff to work at the DeKalb County Jail with the detainees, someone recommended Linda, or Linda called me and said, I would love to do that. And I remember Linda, I sat in on one of her classes with the women, and she said, the only thing different between you and me is that you got caught and I didn't. And I was like, whoa, that's some self-disclosure. I was like, Linda is real. And so in Linda's brief bio, she says, Linda has been homeless, an alcoholic, a victim of domestic violence, and hopeless. Everyone has a past. That was her past. Linda is now a best-selling author, insight and wisdom coach, facilitator, and national motivational speaker. She uses her gifts and talents to empower and encourage women to release the chains of their past. Her passion is to influence women in such a way as to inspire them into positive action. She is a nationally sought out speaker and facilitator for seminars, workshops, support groups, and church organizations. She provides CBT based life skill classes to a local jail and offers re-entry resources to formerly incarcerated women. Linda also provides professional development to local colleges and businesses. Linda is the author of several best-selling books, including Your Past Has Passed, There is Life After 50, Plus, and Fabulous, and her latest, From Child to Caregiver, How to Navigate Your New Norm. She has a degree in English, a certified insight and wisdom coach, and a cognitive behavior therapy practitioner. I would love to welcome my dear friend, Miss Linda Williams.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so glad to be here. Thank you, Dr. Imani and Bernard. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We're so delighted and excited that you are here with us, and we're looking forward to our conversation with you tonight.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your past, which you clearly put up front. I remember Jan Levent saying, you need to put your stuff out there so no one can use it against you. You know, when you become famous.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I remember when you used to do blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yep, I did. And it's all in the book. So
that's right. That's right. Because what I tell women is walk in your truth. Walk in your truth, because as long as you walk in your truth, no one can hold that against you, or no one can come up and say, you know, I remember when, and you be embarrassed about it. There is absolutely nothing that someone can say to me about what I used to be that will take me to a point that I cannot overcome that. And that's because I operate on a platform of transparency. You have to do that because we have to reach people where they are, right? And not where we think they ought to be at whatever stage in life they're at. And in order to do that, then you have to be relatable. And being transparent provides that opportunity for them to relate. Because, you know, I walk in the room and they look at me and they're saying, there's nothing she can tell me. She doesn't have a clue what I'm going through. So, you know, that I start off my first sentence. I've been homeless. I've been an alcoholic. I've been a victim of domestic violence. And they like, whoa, really? Yes.
And then you got their ears, you know.
That's
They're
right.
like, okay,
That's
she's real. She gets us, you know.
That's right.
And yeah, so
that's exactly right.
And then you can become kind of a role model of you don't have to stay where you are.
That's right.
You know, it's possible for that to be your past, like your book, Your Past is Your Past.
That's exactly right.
And to grow and to transform. And I
Right.
think that you know, you do it so well and so consistently. So we're
yeah, because I have people tell me all the time, you don't look like what you've been through. So I tell people, if I still look like what I've been through, I'm still going through it.
Wow, that's right. That's
right.
right.
There ought to be a transformation when you get on the other side of through. You shouldn't look like you did when you went into the valley. You should look like when you come out of it. That's exactly right.
It's so true. So true. Yeah. So you inspire so many people. Do you have a question before we get into the book?
Yes, in the sense, I'm delighted to meet you as in this format, and look forward to seeing you again when we have some time together outside of the show. Share with the audience something about your story, within the first 12 years of your life, that you might see as an inspiration that has helped you to be as you have become and you are becoming.
In the first 12 years. So, you know, the first 12 years of our lives, we are really in a stage where we become sponges. And so we take in a lot, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. So I often tell the ladies this. When I was about 5 years old, we had some relatives that moved upstairs from us. I'm from up north, so the houses are up and down on top of each other. They moved upstairs from us, and she was probably, I guess, maybe 5-6 years older than I was. And being a child and just being a typical 12, 11, 10-year-old, she started referring to me as that skinny, ugly girl with long hair and glasses. And after a while, when I looked in the mirror, that's who I saw. I saw that skinny, ugly girl with long hair and glasses. So that began to shape my perception of myself, which is low self-esteem, if that's what I see when I look in the mirror. And that followed me all the way through my adulthood, which I think had a lot to do with some of the choices that I made in terms of relationships that I had. It had a lot to do with that and with my own, because you can only receive love if you're loving yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And so me being at a place where I was not loving myself and had a low opinion of myself, I then attracted those types of individuals. Water seeks its own level. So what we bring to the table is what we ultimately attract. And it took me a very, very long time to come to that realization. My mother used to say to me all the time, Linda, where are you? I know you're still in there somewhere. Where's my daughter? Where's the strong daughter that I raised? And at that point in my life, she no longer existed. So that had a lot to do with just even through high school. In high school, I remember myself wanting to be popular and wanting to be to hang with the popular crowd, and always feeling like I was on the outskirts. And I have friends that I am still with that went to high school. So during my period of self-realization and self-actualization,
Yeah.
I asked them how they remembered me in high school. And they said, you were pretty, you were smart, you were popular, you were funny.
Mm.
That
Wow.
is not that is
Wow.
how I saw myself.
Right.
Mhm.
So those first years, those first 10, 12 years are
Yeah.
so very important. And we have to be mindful of not saying things like, you just like your daddy, right? Or your mama was in and out of jail and you in and out of jail. We have to be careful about how we, plant those seeds into our children's minds.
Yeah. That is such a beautiful uh, part of your story, and I want to thank you for sharing it, because I can so identify with the metaphor of the sponge and how we absorb what others may share with us at that very impressionable time in our lives. Uh,
Mhm.
and a similar kind of story I briefly share. When I think I was maybe fifth grade, I had this teacher who would teach the class dance. And so for some reason, she decided to put me at the front of the class. This was before we were desegregated in the South. So, we were at all black A.S. Clark School. I grew up in Cordell, Georgia. And so Miss Tony, bless her, she started the music and it played maybe one round, and she was showing us the moves. She stopped it and she came and took me by the wrist and escorted me all the way to the back of the group, and then whispered in my ear. She said, "You stay back here because you just too stiff."
Oh, how terrible.
That's your version of yourself.
And that was a
Stiff.
version of myself. And
Mm.
I never would dance, and then I met someone, and just said, "That's not who you are.
Right.
Come on out here on this floor with me."
Yeah.
And I did. But you're right. The
Yeah.
sponge was, and I believe that for
That's right.
so very long.
That's
And
right.
those thoughts roll over, like you said, into other areas of our lives, and into not only how we feel about ourselves, but then the choices that we make, the
That's
people
right.
who we choose to associate with,
That's right.
who many times are not worthy of being with us,
Yes.
but we're everything is energy. I always talk about this. And so
That's
if
right.
your energy is matching their energy at that particular time, you're gonna attract to each other. And
Right.
it's like when you wake up from that point and you're no longer at that energy, and you're up here and they're down here, it's like,
That's right.
whoa, I have to make some changes, because
That's right. You'd
this
be
is
like, what was I thinking? Right.
what I think. Right,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then we have to be very careful as adults, because sometimes we have to determine, where do our beliefs come from,
Right.
right? Do they
Right.
come from our own knowledge, wisdom, and experience, or are we still believing things that our parents told us? Our parents, they raised us from the point and the level that they were at that particular time in life. So
Mhm.
their beliefs may or may not still be relevant to what's actually happening today. So I believe something, and let me give you a quick story. So there was a woman, and whenever she cooked a pot of greens, she would take the meat and she would cut the end piece off the meat. So her husband asked her, "Why do you cut the end piece off the meat?" And she said, "Because that's how my mother cooked it." And she says, "Well, why did your mother do that?" And she said, "Because that's how her mother cooked it."
Mm.
So the man went and asked the grandmother, said, your granddaughter cuts the end piece off the meat. She said, because your daughter cut it off, because that's what you did, how you cooked it. But nobody knows why. Why do you cut the end piece off the meat? And she said, because I didn't have a pot big enough to put the meat in.
Wow.
It's a great story. Great story.
Right.
It's nothing real deep. And so they've been wasting the meat all these
That's
generations.
right. That's exactly right. That's
Cutting
exactly
it off and
right.
throwing it away. That's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing how communication is so important. You know, we make assumptions about things, or we just follow what has been handed down through tradition without asking questions. So if he hadn't asked that question, the next generation might have, done the same thing.
Oh yeah, it would have continued. That's exactly right. It's a generational thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So speaking about generational things, this book that you've written, From Child to Caregiver, it resonated with me because I for 3 years was up in Virginia Beach, helping my parents out. And
that's
so,
right.
And may they both rest in peace now. I'm blessed to have wonderful, wonderful parents. But as I look through the book, there's so many things, and your book is really a resource. Tell us how you, for people who are caregivers, especially if they're parents, but other family members as well. A good friend of mine is taking care of her husband who has issues around dementia. And so tell us what inspired you, and tell us a little bit about the book.
So we being my brothers and sisters, there are 4 of us. We are taking care of our 96-year-old dad. My mom and dad lived up in Buffalo, and we had been trying, all of us are down here in Atlanta. We had been trying to get them to move to Atlanta. My mom wanted to move. My dad didn't. Buffalo was where he was born and raised. My mom passed 4 years ago. It's been a little bit longer than that now. It's been about 5-6 years ago my mom passed. Well, my dad was still up in Buffalo, still talking about maybe in 5 years I'll move down there. So Daddy was a very healthy 93-year-old. He was still getting up every day, going to the gym. He was exercising. He was, my dad is a minister, so he was still very involved with civic community activities and groups and religious organizations, very active. And then COVID hit. And in March of 2020, Daddy had to sit down, as did the rest of the world.
Right.
Everything shut down. And when my daddy had to shut down, that's when his health started failing him, because he was no longer active. And, we all know that as we get older and we age, you got to keep this body moving.
Keep moving. Yeah.
You got to keep moving, because if you don't, that hip will go out on your shoulder. So we were just very blessed that my sisters happened to be up in Buffalo visiting my daddy and woke up, and Daddy had passed out in the middle of the floor. That was not the first time Daddy had passed out. Daddy passed out in the pulpit. Daddy passed out in the bank. But every time they'd call the ambulance, by the time the ambulance got there, Daddy had regained consciousness and refused to get in the ambulance.
It's like, I'm fine, go away.
I'm fine. Daddy would start reciting the alphabet. He would start naming off the politicians. He would just, to say, I'm fine. I don't, and wouldn't. Well, this time he didn't have any choice. So Daddy had congestive heart failure and survived that procedure, went into rehab, and ended up getting COVID and pneumonia in rehab.
Wow.
Yeah. So we moved Daddy down here, and that began the process of us caring for someone who had cared for us all of our lives. And this is a situation, as Dr. Imani, you're well aware of, that there is no prior experience. There is no class that you go through or to learn how to do this. It's like one day your mom and dad is fine, and the next day you're having to take care of them. Mm-hmm. So we started taking care of Daddy, and it's been 3 years now. And like I said, there's 4 of us, and we each have a different responsibility. My sister, who my dad stays with, takes care of all of his finances. Mm-hmm. I have another sister who's in the medical field. She takes care of all of Daddy's medical needs, prescriptions, all of that kind of stuff. My brother is into home health, and so he kind of handles that, coordinating and handling, working with that. And I handle all of the administrative stuff. I'm the one that's tired, so I'm the one that has the time to make a phone call, finally, after being on hold for 20 minutes, finally get a body, only for them to tell me that they can't help me. Let me give you another telephone number to call.
Only 20 minutes?
Right?
I've had your wait time is 1 hour and 25 minutes. And I'm like, really? So I just keep doing other things, and the phone is on hold while I'm waiting for them.
I was being conservative, because you're absolutely right. And then when you finally get to somebody, they will tell you, I'm sorry, but this isn't the right department. Let me transfer you
to the other department, right?
To the other department. And yes. So I thought the way we were handling this situation was normal. But what I found out is that we're not the norm, because a lot of times there's only one child that's taking care of everything, either because they're an only child, or what's worse is that they have siblings, but their siblings are not stepping up to the plate and helping to take care of their parents. And even with the 4 of us handling Daddy's business, we get burnt out. So from time to time, we have to take a break, and we're only handling a portion of it. So I just said, maybe I can help in providing a one-stop resource guide for people to be able to go to look and see where they can contact whomever they need for a specific service. So I just took the 3 years of experience that I've had in handling all of the administrative part of Daddy's care and put it in a book to be able to help somebody else.
Very good.
I love that you touch on so many important issues in there. And my situation was probably in between yours and the single person, because I was living there with my parents, but I did get support of my other 3 sisters. So there were, 4 of us. Okay. And, sometimes they were tough decisions to make, and I would just go ahead and make them. And they're like, well, why did you do such and such? I had to do it on the spot,
That's
and
right.
I didn't have a whole lot of time to think about that. And, and things do fall through the cracks, and you get mad at yourself. And then there are agencies that are just not, their goal is to not pay you. If something happens, insurance companies, they're set up. I'm sure that some of their staff have training about how we don't pay out on this.
That's right.
And these are the questions you ask. This is what you ask for, knowing that, certain things might not be in order. Right. So there's a lot. And one of the parts that I liked in your story is about taking care of yourself as a caregiver. I think that's a theme in the whole book, but that is so important, to have times where you just focus on healing yourself or replenishing yourself.
Right. That's exactly right. Because oftentimes what happens is the caregiver will die before the person that they're taking care of. because you get worn out. And we were really concerned about that. My mom got very sick very quick. As a matter of fact, my mom and dad were on a cruise. They cruised up until the very last minute that they could no longer cruise. Mama was on the ship and got very sick to the point where when they ship got back to port, she went from the ship to the airplane, from the airplane to the ambulance to the hospital. And mommy probably lasted, I'm gonna say maybe a year. But we tried to get daddy to let us bring somebody in to help take care of mommy. And mom and daddy both was like, we don't need nobody. We've been taking care of ourselves all our lives. We don't need nobody to come in and take. But we would say, but daddy, you were taking care of a healthy mama. Mama's not healthy anymore. Mama's sick, you know. And that's what we were afraid of. We were afraid daddy was going to run himself down trying to take care of mom. And daddy was 90, mommy was 89.
Parents are like right at the same age as my parents, and I think that really is part of my dad's story. It was too much on him, you know. My mom was the one who was ill, who had dementia, whose health was failing, and then he just, you know, I think he got tired, and you know, then his health started failing, and we had a caregiver, a wonderful, wonderful caregiver. She actually moved back to Virginia. To Georgia with me from Virginia. To continue taking care of my mom after my dad passed. So having a really good caregiver is part of the story too. Because if we don't have that training, I mean, there are things that Tracy Barnes, wonderful, wonderful person. She's like a sister to me and to my other sisters. If there were things that she did that I was like, there's no way I could have done that. I don't have that training. I don't have that skill. You know,
that's exactly right. And that is truly a gift. I have so much more respect and admiration for caregivers because you know yourself, Dr. Imani, there were times when it became very difficult for you to take care of your mom and dad, and you love them. So to have someone come in who doesn't know them, know your parents, has no love for them at all, but to be able to take care of them. And we have a wonderful caregiver, absolutely wonderful. She treats daddy as if she is one of his daughters.
Right. So and that's how our person was.
That's right. Her name is Chandra Gaddis. We could not ask for a better caregiver, but that's not always the case.
Right.
No. that is not always the case. So it is a responsibility, and it is a burden of love.
Yes, you know, if I may, my background is history is a little different. I wasn't an only child. I grew up an only child. And as a product of, I had 4 mothers and fathers, biological, 2 adoptive, and 1 step. And I had to be involved in each one of their lives as they approached near the end of their lives. And one in particular, my mother, who lived in Detroit, taught me the most because I had to drive back and forth from Rome, Georgia to Detroit once a month for almost a year.
Oh my.
And it was extremely, extremely stressful. I preached a eulogy. I preached 2 eulogies of the 4 and participated in the final services of the other 2. And I wonder if you would say, as we speak about the caregivers, what are some of the elements from both your experience and your research that can lead to burnout as caregivers are caring for parents who are ill and subsequently who are dying?
Probably one of the biggest factors is not feeling guilty for taking time for yourself, because we can get into a mode of thinking that they took care of me when I couldn't take care of myself as a child. And now I owe them that, to be able to take care of them. And they sacrificed their life for me and put their lives on hold for me.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's my turn. And even though they say as we age, we revert back to our childhood, taking care of an elderly parent is nothing like taking care of that 2-year-old toddler. I can tell you one thing, because that 2-year-old toddler can say no, and you can say, yes, you will. Yes, you will. That 90-year-old parent can say, no, I'm not doing that. And you can't make them do it.
Right.
Right.
So true. So true.
Linda, to that point, I'd like to add, both from on a personal level and from my experience when I was chaplain at a long-term care facility at Grady, facility is named Crestview. I learned so much when I was taking care of Marie, and one of the things that was leading to probably my own burnout was, as her doctor said to me, subconsciously suicidal, because she herself was grieving the loss of my daddy Henry, who had died a year and a half prior to her. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching her depression and watching her sink. And part of me was just trying to will her to keep living.
That's right.
And I remember saying to her on one visit, I said, Mama, why don't you just live for me? Just live for me. And she couldn't. So on one trip, I'm so into trying to get her to come alive again, if you will. Like I remembered her growing up, that I hid her stash. She would drink. She was trying to drink herself to death. So I hid the stash before I left Detroit. And I never forget this. I put it under the kitchen sink, and I got in the car, and I'm driving back to Rome. And as soon as I walked in the house, the phone rings. And it's her. And she says, Bernard, where's my stuff? I said, what stuff, Mom? You know what I'm talking about. What? And I was busted. And I said, it's under the kitchen sink. And someone was there with her, I think a caretaker, and she said, he said it's under the kitchen sink. You see it? She said, yeah, I found it. And I can't say what she said to him. She said, don't you ever do that again.
There are funny moments.
So I said, okay. So I learned from that I could not make her take on what I wanted for her.
No.
And that shifted. And so one night I just laid down beside her and I didn't say anything. And she was talking and she fell asleep. And just before she died, I was visiting with her and she thanked me. She said, Bernard, I want to thank you. I said, for what, Mom? And I thought she said because I was coming back and forth.
Right.
And she said, the night you laid down beside me was the best sleep I got since Henry died.
Mm-hmm.
And that was over a year and a half. And so what I learned from that experience is that we have to surrender our will to their will.
Yes,
and be a loving support to them.
That's right.
And I used to watch children of the elderly in Crestview do the same. They would work so hard trying to get mom or dad to see them or for for something that they may not have communicated while they were active and alive,
Right.
and it was like torture. So that's just one of my experiences in terms of that leading me to burnout that I had to shift. So we have to allow them to be themselves.
That's right.
Status. Would you agree with that?
That's exactly right, because we cannot treat our elderly parents as if they have the mind of a 2-year-old. The thing we tell the caregiver or anyone coming in, my daddy's mind is still sharp. It's his body that's failing. So to give you an example, it was one day about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and my daddy said, okay, I'm ready to go to bed. And we were like, Daddy, it's only 4 o'clock. It's too early. Daddy said, I'm ready to go to bed. I said, Daddy, if you go to bed now at 4 o'clock and sleep all night, when you wake up tomorrow morning, your body is going to be aching so much. He looked at me and said, and whose body is that going to affect, yours or mine?
Great answer. Great
I
answer.
said, well, I guess you told me, didn't you?
Wow.
So you're right. We have to, and I try to cover some of that in the book, that you got to get into their space. You cannot force them into your space, because that's not gonna work. And so you got to find out where they are and how you can best serve them, so that their last time is their best time.
Absolutely. I want to just give a quick shout out to 2 people who've made comments about our discussion. One is Dr. Stephen Thomas, who I met many years ago, researcher, professor, and I forget exactly. I know he's in the education. He said awesome information. So thank you, Dr. Thomas, for joining us this evening. And also someone who unfortunately had to leave, Niamo Nancy Muid. And I've seen her name on the show before, but she says, love this conversation. Had to take care of Mom for 5 years before she left. The pot not big enough is a wonderful story. So much like our lives, misplaced misunderstanding. Have to leave now. Much appreciation. Happy to see you again, Dr. Imani. Blessings to Bernard and to Linda Williams. Yes. So that was a nice comment from her as well. Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to this conversation. You know, we get into our 50s and 60s, and it's like, bam, all of a sudden there's this new dimension in your life. It's like, you know, who's taking care of Mom and Dad? And like the piece I read earlier, it's like the fact that we get to take care of them is such a blessing. So many people lose their parents when they're young and don't have to go through this. So, I mean, I think for folks to step up, however they do it, like the 4 of you, you know, spread out the responsibilities. However they do it is just it's a sign of love and caring, and it's a reflection of how we were raised.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But in doing all of that, as you said, Bernard, we cannot forget about taking care of ourselves. We have to. We cannot pour from an empty vessel. So you gotta take time to replenish and to restore and to renew and to refresh, and just, you know, just be mindless if that's what you want to be. I was teaching my class. I'm in the Fulton County jail system now, Dr. Imani, teaching, and was teaching the class, and we were talking about traveling, and they asked me, had I ever been out of the country? And I told them that I was blessed that me and my family had an opportunity last year to go to Egypt.
Oh, wow.
And it was wonderful. There were 13 of us, and it was just absolutely an awesome experience.
We're planning to go with Dr. Finch, who was a guest on an earlier show. And
okay. Oh, yeah. This absolutely great time. So one of the ladies said, well, what did you learn when you went to Egypt? And I said to her, that wasn't the purpose of my trip. I didn't go to Egypt to learn. I went to Egypt to rest my soul
Wow.
and to rest my mind. So there are times when we have to just vegetate. And you know yourself, if you are serving others, this never stops.
Never.
Because you're always thinking about the next. That's exactly right. And you've got to, so if you combine your mental never shuts down, and now you're taking care of an elderly parent, so your physical never shuts down, pretty soon you're going to shut down.
Right.
And so we have to remember that along that journey, we've got to take some time out to take care of ourselves as caregivers.
I used to sneak out almost every morning and go to hot yoga. I found a hot yoga studio up the street in the same neighborhood as my parents. And I've been practicing for many years anyway. And I would either ride my bike or drive up there and do, 90 minutes or an hour of hot yoga and just cleanse and detox and just like get ready for the day. So that helped me so much, just having that practice.
Yeah. And we've got to learn to do that and not feel guilty because we're doing that.
Yes. I think another important point as we're caring for our elderly parents is, and within the one year span, is the preparation for the dying.
Yes.
And many persons don't prepare for that during the time that they're caring for them in their elderly age.
Right.
But it's inevitable that it's going to happen. And preparing self as well as being with them as they're preparing for that transition is an essential part of elderly care. Right. How would you respond to that expression?
So what we have done is, well, it's like with my mom. I began to pray and ask the Lord to comfort my mother, whether that was on this side or the other side. I wanted my mom to be comfortable. That is the prayer that I have started praying for my daddy. Lord, I want my daddy to be comfortable. Whether or not if it's on this side, fine. But if it's on the other side, I'm okay with that too, because I want him to be comfortable. And so we have to, in preparing ourselves, we have to not think of ourselves. We have to think of them. We hold on. And a lot of times our loved ones will stay on this side because we won't let them go.
Right.
We won't let them go. And so there are things that my mom put in place, things that my dad put in place, that I have since put in place that really takes the burden of decision making for end of life out of our hands. My mom said, no, I've got everything set up. She had a DNR. She said, I want you to put one on the refrigerator, put one on the top of the stairs, you put one on the back door. So if you have to call the ambulance, that's the first thing that they'll see. She said, when the Lord calls me home, you all gonna have to let me go.
Wow.
That is so important.
Wise woman.
Yes. So my daddy has done that, and I have done that because I know that my sons won't let me go. Our children are not gonna pull the plug. They're not gonna do that.
Nope.
And so in preparing, you have to take yourself out of it. And what is best for them.
Absolutely. And Linda, we are almost out of time. I want to make sure that I tell you this goes so fast.
It goes so fast, yes.
It's a great discussion. We could probably talk for another hour and not get tired. We want to make sure people know how to get your book.
Okay.
Wonderful book. So if you give us the best place where they can get that, then we can have our producers put it on the screen.
Okay, so one of two ways. You can order it from Amazon, but if they want an autographed copy, then they can email me to the email address and let me know, give me their contact information, and I'll give them details on how to purchase it. And then I can mail them an autographed copy. So either way, they can order it from Amazon or they can get an autographed copy from me.
I got an autographed copy from you. That's
yeah, you did. Thank you.
Thank you. And I highly recommend it. And I don't think Linda will mind me sharing that we've talked about starting a support group, like an online support group for caregivers of parents and family members. And so we're just kind of planting some seeds. We don't have all of the I's, dots, and T's crossed, but we are looking at that because, during this time that I was helping care for my parents, the same conversation kept coming up with many friends. Every time I talked to them, yes, girl, I'm taking care of my mom. I have my mom with me. And so it was like the same conversation all day long, every day, 7 days out the week. So I think that there are people who would benefit. I mean, you and I spoke about one issue that I was going through. This was even prior to mom passing. And, we spoke for like half an hour about that one issue. And I said, if you have 10 people on that conversation, then, we have 10 different experiences dealing with insurance companies and, and pension companies and places like that. And, there must be some shortcuts, to dealing with them. Right. We can share and just also being supportive of each other is so important because like you said, we get times where you're just like at burnout. So we will definitely be sharing on this show and on social media the fact that we are going to start an online support group for caregivers.
Yes.
And I'm excited about that.
I'm very excited about that. That's just going to be an awesome, and I had absolutely no idea what the purpose of this book was, other than just to share some of the knowledge that I had gained over the past 3 years. But it's just being revealed to me that this is going to be so much more than just simply publishing this book.
Right. People need this information.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, before we leave, there's a documentary that we want to share, and we're going to come back after we present it to the audience as we do, and have some closing thoughts, and that you have the last word to the audience. And then once we finish the show, don't leave because we want to talk offset, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Right.
Janet?
Eagles versus pigeons. Which one would you rather be?
He said I want to be an eagle.
Why?
Because they fly higher than pigeons.
And what does that allow them to do?
See more.
Who are you?
So much of who I am today is my experience growing up in my hometown of Kansas City.
My mother had me at 15.
All I wanted was somebody to love me.
What have I done that's so bad that you can't forgive?
Mama set me up to go to prison instead of her. When the judge sentenced me to 11 years, I said, I'll show you. I think about the system that failed her. I am not what has happened to me.
Your story and your experiences, your being seen, it's no accident.
Well, I kind of always escape through art. If I just took the next step, the world would open up before me. Share this inner light within you. I am not what has happened to me. I am what I choose to become.
Awesome.
That's so awesome. And
Oh
the
my
big part
goodness.
of that true
Yes.
story, other than Bernard being the therapist in the story, playing himself, which is, wasn't a role, it was actual work, right? But a big part of that take home story for me is the relationship between him and his mother and the healing that takes place. He serves 11 years in prison because she ratted him out so that she wouldn't go to prison. That's heavy.
It's heavy.
He loves her. He loves her dearly. We were at the Atlanta Film Festival last spring or the spring before. Last spring, and they were featuring this as a film, and they were raising money for it and so forth. And a few months later, we saw it as at the top of the list of HBO Max. And so obviously someone picked it up. It's a true story. It's so beautiful, so powerful, and he's such a talented artist. He lives here in Atlanta.
Okay.
We have to have him on the show. We just have to.
Yeah, because that was awesome.
Yeah. You have to see that, Linda. You will love that piece. That's something that would be nice to actually show at the jail if you could.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I know how they are with technology.
Ooh, girl, and I am actually on the mental health ward, so I'm not in general population.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's even more restrictive.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm
sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a beautiful story about George and his transformation. I mean, he's always been an artist, but he just grew up in the crack house. He said if there was a crack house in the neighborhood, it was my house. Mama was on crack, grandmama was on crack, and he was able to overcome that.
Yes.
Those Van Gogh kinds of paintings, and he just looks at it and just draws.
Outstanding. Yeah, you'll have to definitely have him on your show because that was just so awesome and so enlightening. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Linda, what closing words would you like to say to our listening audience about from child to caregiver and caring and taking care of self and other? What words of wisdom you'd like to leave?
So, you got to recognize that it's a new norm. One of the books that I published is called There Is Life After. And it talks about all of the different experiences in life that we go through, that there is life after that. And once you begin to take care of your elderly parents, that becomes your life after, because the life you had before no longer exists. And so you have to recognize that. And then you have to find ways to get help. Understand that you don't have to bear this burden, walk this journey all by yourself. Even if you have siblings and your siblings are not helping you, realize and understand that there are support and resources out there. And that's one thing this book would do. Our support group is just to be able to get the word out there to help people and direct them to where those resources are.
Yes,
absolutely.
Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you.
This has been a delight sharing with you and receiving the wisdom that you have imparted upon us and to the audience. We've been blessed indeed tonight by your presence.
Thank you. I have enjoyed being here very much.
And you all go out and buy her book, even if it's not as relevant for you. You must know somebody that can benefit from the book. So buy a couple copies. Make it your favorite gift to give out during the holidays.
That's right. That's right. Thank you.
Thank you. And good night.
Welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Good night, everyone. We're out of time, and we'll see you again next week here on Progressively Yours Health and Wellness Podcast. Thank you.
Take care.